Now that we have the application up and running, let's implement identity into our project. So we're at video 1, and what we'll do in this video is we'll configure identity within our startup class. We'll do that first, and then later on we'll protect an API by using the authorized attribute. So let's jump into our startup class inside of the API folder. And the first thing we'll do here is we'll tell our application that we want to use identity. And to do that, we'll do that within the configure services. So towards the end here, I'll add a snippet and we'll add on to the services, and we're using the add identity. And when you use this add identity, you could pass in types. In this case, we're going to pass in the identity user, and I'll bring that in. So I hit Control Dot, and then we'll bring that in from Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity. Now you could create your own user and pass that in here as the type. But when you do that, you want the identity user or the user to derive from identity user. I'm trying to keep this real basic and simple, so we'll just use the default identity user and the identity role. So now we're bringing in identity into our project, but we need to tell identity which DB context to use. In this case, it's going to be our application DB context. So I'll add on towards the end here, and I'll select Add Entity Framework Store. And then here you can pass in a type, and the type is going to be our application DB context. So I'll copy this and pass that in here. Then we'll make sure we close it up correctly. So this is a real basic way of setting it up within your configure services. In later videos, we're going to be adding on to this a lot, but this will be great for now. And there's one more thing we want to do inside the configure services. We want to tell our application that we want to use authentication. And I'll add that right here. So app.use and use authentication. That's the one you want. And then I'll make sure I close it up correctly. And that's it for setting up our startup class. So I'll make sure I save this. So you want to make sure you add this within the configure method. So within here. And then add it above the authorization one right here. And then you want to make sure you add this within the configure services. And then now we're ready to start protecting APIs. Step 3, now we're ready to add the authorized attribute to any API we want to protect. So I already have a values controller for testing, so that's where we'll test out our authorized attributes. So if we go inside the controllers, open up the value controller, and the API we'll protect is this. So if the user is not authorized, they will not be able to see these values here. So here I'll add the authorized attribute, and we'll make sure we bring that in. So I'll click on Microsoft ASP.NET Core Authorization. That's the one you want. So now this route or this API should be protected. Make sure you save the file, and we'll restart the application since we made some changes to the startup class. So open up the command line. Now let's check this out in Postman. So the API that we added the authorized attribute to is localhost 5000 value. And before we added the attribute, we were getting this array of values. So now if we hit send, we get back a not found. Now you might be expecting a unauthorized at this point, but what's happening here is we didn't set up any redirect or any unauthorized routes. So that's why we're getting this not found. So if you're getting a not found, that's exactly what you're looking for at this point. So we just set up our application to use identity. And now we're ready to start creating users so we can use this protected route. So to create users, we need to set up our database. And what we need to do is set up our application DB context to derive from identity DB context. That's given to us by identity. Also in the next video, what we'll do is we'll set up our first migration as well. So I'll see you then.